presentation mode.
Yes. Always the prezzies. I love the prezzies. For those of you that don't know. Okay. All right. So my name is Kaiti Kinshella, and I spent the last 5 months in Leadville, Colorado, which for those of you that don't know, it's at 10,000 feet. So besides relearning how to breathe, I also worked at this place called High Mountain Institute as an apprentice for the Spanish teacher. High Mountain Institute is a semester school for juniors in high school, and they come from all over the country to go to this place. And essentially they go on 3 different expeditions throughout the semester while also taking normal classes. And so the slogan for HMI is where nature and minds meet. And so as an apprentice, I had essentially 3 roles, and they were academics, wilderness, and residential. And since academics was really the most important part of this experience for me, coming from the master's program, I'm going to talk about that first. So, right when I got to HMI, I kind of dove into the Spanish classroom. My teacher gave me a lot of freedom to implement things that I wanted to, and one of the things that I started was an Artist of the Week. And I really have Chris' impartiality to thank for this because she taught us a lot about art and implementing it in the classroom. But every week we would choose an artist and talk about it with the students. And the goal of this was just to get students thinking about art in a different way, get them thinking about where that art came from, what the cultural significance is of that art, and really what that art could mean. And so they had these little worksheets that would say, on the worksheet, ¿qué ves?, which means what do you see, and ¿cuál preguntas tienes?, so what questions do you have. So they would start out after getting a brief description of the artist, just kind of taking some time to think about what they see and what questions they have, and really digging into that art, and then we would talk about it as a class, so either pair share or together as a whole class, and then I would ask them what their interpretation of the art was. And besides that, we would sometimes do supplemental activities, and one of the ones that I loved to do was one that my co-teacher from Rampart first semester taught me. And what you would do is have one student sitting facing the art piece, and then one student would be sitting facing away from the art piece, and the student facing towards the art piece would describe it in Spanish, while the person facing away would draw that piece of art on a whiteboard. And it was really great for their listening and speaking skills. And as you can imagine, really, really ridiculous and fun with artists like Dali and Picasso, who are very abstract. So besides doing art and then teaching curriculum that my co-teacher had developed, I also got to develop 2 of my own units. And these units were centered around my thesis research project, which was based in this concept called cross-cultural awareness. And so the first unit was all about undocumented youth in America. And essentially what we were doing was reading these stories of undocumented youths for homework, and then the students would come into class and discuss what they had read the night before. And their culminating project was to do a compare and contrast between their own life and one of the lives of the undocumented youth that we had read. And so here are just some examples of what the students came up with. Dahlia, who is right here, she drew herself alongside pictures of a bunch of different immigrants that she had researched. I also had a student, Lily, who she called herself not creative, but the truth was that she was really creative. But I told her that she could do a math-based assignment just because she didn't feel like she could connect with the creativity of the assignment. And she came up with this thing, apparently this math problem is called Euler's characteristic. And what it means is that even though these spheres have different connecting points, they, when put into this equation, will always equal 2. And so down here she's comparing and contrasting her life to that of one of the immigrants that we read. But then her ultimate conclusion was that humans, although they have these different group identities, really have this universal identity, right? Like all humans laugh and that type of thing. So she was kind of connecting it through that, which I thought was really neat. And then one of the last ones that I really loved was this one where a girl drew her life from childhood to high school in comparison to one of the youths that we had read about. So besides that unit, I also got to develop a unit that was based primarily and completely in cross-cultural awareness. And with this unit, the students were exploring their own values and beliefs in comparison to values and beliefs of other cultures. So doing another type of compare and contrast activity. And we spent a lot of time talking about collectivism and individualism and these cultural concepts. And then for their final essay, they were asked the question, originally in Spanish, but I'll tell it to you guys in English: how do experiences shape values, beliefs, and cultural systems? And so they wrote 5-paragraph in-class essays in Spanish on this question. And yeah, some of their answers were really unique and wonderful. So the next aspect of my time at HMI was wilderness. When I wasn't teaching in the classroom, I was teaching outside. HMI is an experiential education school, and so they really value the types of things that Nick was talking about in his presentation, like place-based education and learning through doing. And so the students, like I said previously, went on 3 expeditions that ranged from 8 days to 14 days. And these expeditions were either in the mountains of Colorado, so a skiing expedition, or an expedition in Utah where they were backpacking. One of the primary things that I was teaching them was soft and hard skills. And so in regards to soft skills, that could be something like learning about communication or leadership or how to work in a team. And then with hard skills, it was things more like, okay, how am I going to work this stove? How am I going to build a quigloo? And a quigloo is, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's basically a giant snow mound, like 15 feet, that the students dig and pile up themselves, and then they dig out the snow in order to live in it for 8 days. So it's pretty amazing. And as you can imagine, these skills really do transfer into the front country in a lot of amazing ways. In regards to soft skills, they're able to apply those leadership skills to their school at home, and with hard skills, they learn a lot about what it means to work hard. In order to evaluate them on these soft and hard skills, we gave them feedback constantly. HMI is very, very based in feedback. And so we would give them informal feedback essentially all the time, but then formal feedback mid-trip and at the end of the trip. And this feedback was really beneficial to them because it was very specific and solution-oriented. So they were being told how they were doing great and what they needed to improve upon and how they could do that within the next couple of days to really improve their skills as outdoorsmen. And I think this really is one thing that is definitely going to transfer into my teaching experience, because being able to give good feedback to your students is an essential part of being a good teacher. So the last thing that I really valued on these wilderness expeditions was being able to form genuine relationships with my students. I got to know them in ways that I would never have gotten to know my students in the classroom. I got to see them at their weakest moments, and I got to see them at their highest points. And just getting to know them in that manner really revealed to me the value of actually taking the time to get to know your students outside the classroom and what that can do for your relationship with them in the classroom. So lastly, and it's really last but not least, is the residential piece. And I think that at HMI, this is the thing that gets overlooked the most. But in reality, it has a huge influence on how these students come away from the experience. Because if there's one thing that the students are going to remember, it's their community at HMI and their friends that they made and the connections that they made with the students and the teachers. And so one of my duties was to be the head of a cabin. And this picture is a picture of my students on the last night. They're writing letters to each other, and it was really sad, but I acted as a support system for them in this cabin setting. And so I was able to come into the cabin about twice a week, once to have a community meeting and then once to sleep there. And really my role was just to give them advice and be an ear for them to listen to. So whether they needed to talk to me about some boy or girl that they had a crush on, or maybe some problem that they were having at home, those types of things would come up in this situation. And then the other part of this community piece is participation. The apprentices are actually living on campus with the students, and so we're in really close quarters with them, and it's definitely expected of us to be able to be a part of their daily lives. And so this is a picture of the fun run that we did at the end of the year, which was, fun. It was like a 10-mile run at 10,000 feet at 10 o'clock. And all the students train for it all year, and we participate in it with them. And it's really actually a wonderful bonding experience for the whole community to reach this common goal together. And everybody completed it. And Aiden, right here, actually did it in record time at 1 hour and 4 minutes. So that was amazing. And one of the apprentices, who was a cross-country runner at Dartmouth, ran alongside him and coached him through the whole thing. So it was really amazing. And yeah, so we would participate in this type of thing. We would play knockout with them, eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. I cut my students' hair. Just a lot of different things like that that wouldn't happen at a traditional school that I think were really valuable for me to be able to see how participating in a community like that is so much fun. And so yeah, in conclusion for the residential piece, really just being able to be with my students in that setting was a blast, and it made me want to work in a community, and that's ultimately what led me to where I'm going to be placed, or not placed, same mistake, isn't it? Yeah. Where I'm going to be working next year at Steamboat Mountain School, and it's a boarding school, and so I think that HMI was the best thing that could have happened to me with this program, because it really did set me up for what I want to do in my career. Questions? Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, I have kind of a language question. So we've talked about establishing rapport with students in a Spanish class, and that it's difficult to do when you can't speak to them in English.
Mm-hmm.
So based on your experience at HMI, would you say, and the closeness that you built with your students outside of class when you were speaking to them in English, would you say that it's really impossible to ever hope for that level of closeness in a Spanish class? The Spanish teacher would have to get outside of the class to really know her students the way you did.
I think that there are certainly like possibilities to get to know your students really well as a language teacher and not have those interactions outside of class very often, but I do think that it is the responsibility of every teacher to make those, take that time to really like try to seek your students outside of class, whether that's like going to a sporting event that they have or watching them in a play, just because making those little steps forward I think makes a world of difference. And I think when you're actually living with them and you're with them all the time, it does make the biggest difference I could have ever imagined. Yeah, Chris.
Are there certain things that will live on there at HMI because of what you contributed? What are some of the things that you find that you left them? What sustainable pieces are there?
I think that it's difficult to say because there's a new Spanish faculty that's entering into the classroom this year, and I don't know her, but I would hope that, I mean, my curriculum that I had developed is like still there in their files, because they do share curriculum with one another, and so she has access to it, and it was really effective for me, and I think effective for the students in increasing their cross-cultural awareness, so I do hope that she uses it. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they have a any sort of scholarship program, or does everybody that come, are they paying full price?
Yeah, so they have a really good scholarship program. Some of the students receive full ride scholarships, and it's essentially based off of parent income, and so HMI has a philosophy of like, if you get in and you can't afford it, we will find a way to pay your way. Yeah.
Do they have any summer opportunities to be able to continue the partnership? Because it has been really valuable in the past, and the schedule changing could change that.
Yeah, so I don't think that the experience will be the same, but there is a summer internship opportunity, and whether or not you're doing what I did as an apprenticeship or working for the summer, HMI just in general I think is a fantastic institution and like well worth getting to know and work with those teachers. Anything else? Yeah, Sam?
Do you think, in terms of what you learned at HMI and how you apply that to your job next year, do you think you have more things to apply in terms of like communal aspects or academic ones?
I would say it's relatively equal, and I know that Steamboat hired me like big reason why Steamboat hired me was because of my experience in the community and in a community setting, in the residential setting and the wilderness setting. But like personally for myself, being able to just be in a Spanish classroom for another semester and have the freedom to create my own units was like a very big learning curve for me. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys.